Hey, welcome back to the Disney Plus Everyday Challenge, and today we have Venom. This is the Sony acquisition. Well, they didn't acquire Sony, but their partnership with Sony to bring Spider-Man and the characters from the Spider-Man universe and connect them to the MCU, at least with the Spider-Man films, with the Tom Holland Spider-Man films, and what we just saw in No Way Home. This is another one of those ancillary Spider-Man villain films. Venom has had a long history. He started as a villain, Eddie Brock as Venom, and there's been many other permutations of Venom, Carnage, and a lot of symbiotes. And he became so popular in the early 90s that they get to the point where they're like, we need to make comics with Venom as the lead. Sure. So they turned him into a lethal protector. He is an anti-hero in the realm of the Punisher or maybe Wolverine or just Ghost Rider. Yeah, I mean, he does Vengeance. So, but it's a pretty... It's a pretty big deal that they made a movie focused on the villain. And of course, they're making more. We got Craven coming up later this year in just a few months. It's basically for, I don't know, back in the 90s when Marvel was going under, they were just selling off their characters to different studios in order to make money. And I think pretty much Sony got Spider-Man and any ancillary characters for a song. I'm pretty sure people at the time were not saying it was so cheap, but relatively speaking, it's worth a lot now. So it makes sense that they start, since there's not a whole lot of heroes in Spider-Man's world, he has a big rogues gallery. He has a lot of bad guys, as we saw in No Way Home, bringing them all together. And of course, we've had 3 different depictions of Spider-Man in Peter Parker's Spider-Man in those films over the last 20-some years. And so I'm surprised it's taken this long to 2018. This is an hour and 53 minutes long. 2018, it's taken this long to get Venom properly onto screen. Some people debate whether it's properly done or not, but to each their own. I've never been a fan of Venom in his hero mode. And I've read some of his stories in the last few years with the Clintar and the King in Black and all this stuff that's going on with that. And his son, he has a son now. He has all these different things. There's the Red Goblin, which is a combination of a Venom, the Carnage symbiote, and Green Goblin for a time, and now it's somebody else, which I'm not going to spoil for you if you happen to not be caught up in the comics. There's still a lot of people behind Venom as like their favorite character, and a lot of people were like, okay, great, we have a movie. We got 2 movies now, and they tease that it is connected to the Spider-Man universe and maybe to eventually the larger MCU. Yeah, we'll see about that. I think by the time Secret Wars comes along, we might see Tom Hardy as Venom, as Eddie Brock Venom, thrown into the mix with 15,000 other characters. It's an exaggeration. At one point, I think it was said that Marvel has well over 5,000 distinct characters in its universe. It's grown since then. That was the last number I heard. It's approximately. But in launching this, they do a pretty good job of keeping it separate from Spider-Man. The origins of Venom are very tightly aligned with Spider-Man, surprise, surprise, in the Marvel comics. In the original version, it was an alien symbiote that came from, that happened during the original Secret Wars, and it became Spider-Man's suit, and then he brought it to Earth, and then he had a problem with it because it was taking over his body, and then it became a bad guy, and then it attached itself to Eddie Brock, who already hated Peter Parker. And so in those two characters, the symbiote didn't like Spider-Man, Peter Parker, and Eddie Brock did not like Peter Parker, and together they already knew Peter's identity and as Spider-Man, and wreaked havoc in his life. And visually, I mean, Todd McFarlane is a very big part of, I think it's David Michelin and as a writer, and Todd McFarlane is a big part of making the look of Venom that's been copied. I mean, you go with what works. So there's people who've done a tremendous job making Venom look scary, and as he should be. He's a bad guy, at least when he started out. So I think there's they use that part. There's a alien symbiote infestation, in a sense, that happens on a special trip. There is a little Easter egg early on, I will tell you in a moment. But at the same time, in the ultimate version of the MCU, Marvel Universe, not MCU, Marvel Universe, there was a storyline that created Venom from cancer research as performed by Peter Parker's parents. Yeah. And John Parker, is it John? John and Mary Parker? John Parker is part of the experiments in trying to cure cancer, brought about this creature that connected itself to Peter, and then, of course, Venom, and then became Venom. And it's all this whole thing. So they sort of mash those two origins together in this, in a sense, because there is somebody doing cancer research to cure cancer, but he's also a guy who's doing rockets and sending people into space. It's kind of like an even more evil Elon Musk. So he just doesn't have a social media empire to ruin. So here we got Eddie Brock, played by Tom Hardy. He has a girlfriend played by Michelle Williams. You probably know her from tons of much better, higher grade films, and Dawson's Creek, of course. So you get those. They're two people in love, and what you got to do when you have the making of a hero, you got to tear him down early on, and he loses everything as a result of his bullheadedness. Eddie Brock in the comics was very bullheaded, and he did some things as a reporter that got himself in a lot of trouble, and always felt that Peter Parker was responsible for ruining his life and taking all the good stories and taking the good pictures and whatever else. And, well, here everything falls apart because of a story that he does that, the guy who's collecting symbiotes, basically, or sending people into space. And that Easter egg I told you about, there's astronauts that are coming back from space where the symbiote, they brought back these life forms. Well, I think the captain of that spaceship was named Jameson. And you'll know that character. If you're a comics fan, you'll know that name as an astronaut named Jameson. He is known as the son of J. Jonah Jameson, the reporter. You'll see played by J.K. Simmons in all the Spider-Man films, pretty much, including the most recent Tom Holland ones. And also, I think does he do the voice also in the Across the Spider-Verse? I'm not sure. Hold on a second. No edits. Okay. So, but we get, he's the son of Jonah Jameson, and he also becomes Man-Wolf at some point in the comics. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but go with me on that. Trust me on that. It is a thing. Anyway, this is an attempt at making a more mature, even though it's PG-13, they do get one F-bomb. There's a bit more profanity than you'd get in a normal Spider-Man film. And again, it's not a Spider-Man film, it's a Venom film. So it's got to be edgier, it's got to be cooler, and of course Venom is pretty violent. It's pretty bloodless for the most part. It's just more of a psychological terror kind of thing, and there's points where Venom bites people's heads off, but you never see that exactly. People were begging for an R-rated Venom, And yeah, well, that didn't happen because they needed to have as many butts in the seats in 2008 in order to justify spending money on this. And I think if you're going to find any weakness in this, it is the fact that it's a lot of digital effects. Of course, it comes down to a digital monster fest, and for the people who love Venom, yeah, sure, you get that. You want that. You want Venom going up against something that is even more powerful than he is and overcoming. And of course, I'm not ruining anything by telling you that Venom has to win in the end. He's not going to lose. It's a hero story. He has to go overcome symbiote struggles, you know. It works as a comedy. Tom Hardy, I think, is putting his all into this. He just seems like a nervous drunk the entire time. He is he's so twitchy, especially once the symbiote Venom takes over his body. And I guess it's never really understood why he's called Venom. Maybe that's just his alien name, his symbiote name. His name is Venom. Now the guy's named Riot, and yeah, I don't know. We get a lot of exposition. We get a lot of stuff that just is sort of establishing this world without having to rely on Spider-Man, which is one of the biggest struggles. The fans kind of want to have this tied into Spider-Man. And one of the big questions is, now that we know of a multiverse of Spider-Man, which universe is he part of? This takes place in San Francisco, so it's helping to keep him far, far away from Peter Parker or even Miles Morales, keeping them far, far away from any adventures that are happening in New York City, whether it's Toby, Andrew, or Tom. So that's good. You can build your universe without having to worry about continuity issues or anything else. Later on, we'll see after credit sequences that show him being bopped around by the Doctor Strange's spell. Yeah. So yeah, there's definitely connection, but it's still sort of unclear as to which universe he's from. Of course, at some time, whoever's playing Spider-Man at the time, or if we bring back and make a third Andrew film, maybe we'll see Spider-Man. I mean, maybe see Venom there. You never know. There's always, between the writer strikes and the SAG strike, you never know what's going to happen. So things may not get made for decades, and everybody might just, no, not decades. They'll figure something out this year, but still, things are moving slowly in the world of film that already hasn't been written or acted for the most part. It didn't get done too soon unless people work things out. So story-wise, it just didn't do a whole lot for me. It's very much about cool scenes, creating cool scenes. We don't even get to see the full Venom incarnation until literally halfway through the film. That was intentional, I'm pretty sure. They sort of they sharked it the whole way, so you don't show the shark early on, and as it builds and builds, you see pieces of Venom coming through, and also another symbiote coming through and murdering people. But we don't see Venom incarnate taking on the bad guys until literally an hour into the film. And it makes sense. Also, from an effects standpoint, you don't have to spend as much money and time putting Venom through the entire thing, but you also get the human struggle, so you get to see Tom Hardy's face, and it's always good for the actor to go, hey, I'm going to be playing a superhero or a supervillain or whatever it is. You know what, if I'm going to be in this, could you notice how, like, every single time Spider-Man gets in a fight, by the time the final fight happens, his mask is pretty much torn off or ripped to shreds or whatever else. So you can see that the actor is on screen. Toby, Andrew, Tom, nobody's going to be fighting the bad guys necessarily completely with a full mask all the time. It's always that big emotional moment at the end where the mask comes off and you get to act. Otherwise, you're just going to do a voiceover work for somebody who looks good in a bodysuit. In this case, he could have if there was just going to be Venom all the time, it could have been just Tom Hardy doing voiceovers for somebody, or just going through the motions with plastic balls all over his outfit, and them just CGIing everything the entire time. And yeah, it never really is going to happen for the most part. That's why they came up with the whole Iron Man thing. Like Iron Man, Robert Downey Jr.'s in the Iron Man armor, of course, during battles, but so you can see him speaking rather than just, behind a mask. They created that whole bubble, HUD, heads-up display kind of thing, so we could see his face, and that got around that problem because you want to see the actor, and the actors want to be seen. Anyway, to me, there are, of course, Venom is not so bad to me compared to Carnage. Carnage to me just never felt like a Spider-Man villain. Never. It seemed like it came from two different worlds, and it just got. Because Spider-Man, the most frustrating thing is that, yeah, Peter Parker wins the day, but he never wins for himself. And he always has to save lives. He always tries to do better. And it leaves person like Venom when he was really bad, and Carnage, who is really not redeemable in any way as a serial killer, it always leaves them alive for the most part. Sure, the Sentry tore Carnage in half many, many years ago in the comics, but he got better. He came back. But this is the kind of thing that was a Spider-Man. Spider-Man is, when he's fighting bad guys, especially like this, there's no way to win in the end against these guys. And that's why it just never felt right with Spider-Man, with fighting Venom or Carnage. Except when Venom made it personal. Because Peter Parker. Because Mary Jane. Those kind of things make sense. But when it's just like, hey, Venom, we don't have the same policy about helping people. Let's fight. It just became, okay, fine, we're doing this. And 32 pages later at most, 22 pages later at most, yeah, it ends up the way it began, and nothing's really changed. So when it comes to this, without any Spider-Man whatsoever, the stakes have to be solely on Eddie Brock being a sympathetic character. And for the most part, he's kind of a douche. He is a loser. He's not exactly a great guy, usually due to his own actions. You empathize with Spider-Man because a whole lot of crap goes down in his life that is not necessarily his fault or through his mistake, and he wants to do better. Eddie kind of reins in the Venom symbiote as much as he can. But he also has to be cool to all the people watching. If he's too much of a straight-laced dude, then he's not Venom. Venom is chaos. Venom is madness and craziness, and has to look good on a full-page spread, And here, there's a number of money shots where they're just like, he looks fantastic, just standing over, just black and big eyes and teeth and tongue and everything else. And that they do a good job of that. But for the most part, it just becomes a blur for me. There's a lot of stuff just going on, stuff exploding, cars flipping over, motorcycles flying through the air, all this stuff in order to go, we made an action superhero movie, right? Yeah. I don't think it's as... I didn't really have a good opinion of it when I first saw it. I don't think it's as bad as I originally thought of it. So if you're a Spider-Man fan, don't go into this expecting a Spider-Man story, or even along that same thematic realm. It definitely does stand on its own. It never needs to cross over with Spider-Man in any way. It will. Eventually, he will have to face Spider-Man at some point. How that's going to roll out, it just feels like it's going to lead to being disappointing. Because Peter's just going to be like, oh crap, you just bit a guy's head off. Stop that. After punching him a lot of times. I don't know. Venom becomes it's a corner you paint yourself into when you have to write a Venom story of Spider-Man. But it's coming. But I'm not talking about this movie. Again, one of the strong points of it is its flourishes of humor. Tom Hardy just eating the scenery, literally, in some cases, when he first is getting used to the symbiote in his body, and he just has this hunger craves. When he smashes into the restaurant where Michelle Williams is Anne. and just goes off the rails. He's fantastic. He is just nuts, and it's a good depiction of, you want to say, okay, well, Eddie, you sympathize for a guy who's just out of his mind and he can't control things. And also the first presentation of Venom, even when he doesn't even understand what's going on, when the people start coming for him, when he's been infected and he doesn't even understand how to defend himself, or where this voice in his head is coming from. And a lot of the humor does come from Eddie and the Venom talking to each other in his head. It's something that I don't know if they really did. It was never really a funny thing in the comics. It was here we get a man with two heads kind of situation where they certainly don't get along, but they share in the same body. And yeah, I made a man with two heads reference. Thank you, Rosie Greer. So yeah, I can't say this is a must-watch for Marvel fans, for the MCU. You'd go your entire life without having to watch this, and you'd be like, oh, well, I didn't miss anything. At least until eventually he gets added to the whole milieu of everything that's going to happen. It's going to happen at some point. And you might as well get an idea of what he's all about. This is definitely not for little kids. It's anybody pretty much 8 years old and over is going to get this. If they can handle people saying shit a lot, yeah, pretty much you'll be fine. If you hear it at home all the time, they should be fine here. But it's definitely not for little kids. Venom can be a bit of a scary kind of guy, and the voice is really good. It's really deep and kind of rumbly, and it works really well. I didn't see who is doing his voice, but yeah. Jenny Slate's in this too. I forgot that she's in this, and Reed Scott as Dr. Dan. For the most part, yeah, there's might be some recognizable faces, but one of the guys from the Mayans is in this. I'm just gonna say, yeah, if you're a Marvel fan, yeah, you got to check this off the list, and it's on Disney Plus. If you've already got Disney Plus, here you go. You got to watch it. You got to watch it until somebody decides they're gonna pull it away. And we don't have Venom 2 yet, I do not think. Eventually, that will probably be added as well, and Kraven soon after that, depending on how that well that does, I imagine. Yeah. I guess that's all I can really tell you about this. Of course, one of Stan's final appearances in a Marvel film. He does a cameo, of course. Yeah. I kind of hesitated seeing this again when it got picked, because I know that I didn't really have a great opinion about it, and I kind of want to look for the best in everything that I talk about. And it's, like I said, it's not garbage. It's not bad. It's just not great, despite the tremendous amount of talent that's on the screen. And to me, that's difficult. And it's difficult just because the character itself is just not sympathetic, unless you're just like, I want a hero that just kicks butt. And even then, Eddie Brock barely can kick butt. It's Venom that does all the work. So half the time, I'm sure most people would just want to see a movie. That's why Iron Man 3, for many people, were like, I don't want to see Tony out of it armor for most of the film. I want to see him in the armor. And you know what? People are going to want to watch this movie and want to see Venom more than they want to see Eddie Brock doing stuff. You're not going to get that for half the film. But hey, get what you pay for, I guess. That's the lesson. Anyway, let's pick tomorrow's episode.
375.
375. Oh, gotta scroll down. 375. Oh, okay. All right. I don't know if this is I don't think it's a series. I think it's just a single special reality dancing thing. If you watch Dancing with the Stars, you'll recognize these names. The fact that I even recognize these names is kind of amazing. But they've appeared in a lot of Disney stuff. So let's watch tomorrow. Step into the movies with Derek and Julianne Hough. Yeah. So it's a completely different, opposite thing from Venom. Step into the movies with Derek and Julianne Hough on the next Disney Plus Everyday Challenge. I'll see you back here tomorrow with that.